So, hello dear listeners, and welcome again to another Starry Skies on Forest FM. I'm Mark Hardaker.
And I'm Steve Tonkin.
And today we're going to be talking to you about the night sky for the month of November, including what the planets are going to be doing, the moon and the sun, as well as maybe some meteors on our constellation of the month and maybe a comet or two, something like that. So we'll also be giving you some information on how to find out more about astronomy and how to join your local astronomy clubs. So how have you been, Steve? All well?
Yes, I really do like these dark, longer nights. I don't have to stay up so late to be able to do some observing now.
That's it. And now the clocks have gone back in November. You see, now it's really dark skies, isn't it? And early. 6 o'clock, you look out and it's black.
Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
But, the sun is heading south very quickly in November. We are going to be having these longer nights, shorter days, going to be chilly. And I hope you remember to put your clock back, did you?
Of course. I hope everyone else did as well.
Yeah, I hope so. It's a sure sign that winter's coming. But do you remember, though, in the old days, in our good old days, that seemed to mean, well, for us in the Northern Hemisphere, Steve's from the South originally, but in the Northern Hemisphere, that seemed to always mean crispy, clear, dark nights with stars like diamonds. I'm getting all poetic.
Yeah, you are. But climate change has changed all that, hasn't it? The one thing that has really been a difference is the amount of water in the atmosphere. So it's much cloudier, hazier than it used to be.
I seem to have memories of days of 3 or 4 clear, crispy nights with Orion striding out over the horizon, night after night of that crispy snow on the ground. You ever seen snow down here recently? Don't think so.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, it was a few years ago.
Beast from the East, maybe. Anyway, enough of this silly old banter. Let's crack on.
So, what are the planets doing this month, Mark?
Well, let's start with the moon, shall we?
The moon.
The moon was was full moon just at the last week of the last month, so the 28th of October. And there was a tiny lunar eclipse. Did you see it?
No, I didn't. It would have been just a little nibble out of...
Yeah, just barely detectable. A little notch cut out of the moon there, but it was cloudy down here, so didn't get to see that, did we, really? And now the moon is waning, so from the full moon on the 28th, it's getting smaller and smaller and visible in the morning sky, and it's going to get thinner and skinnier until the next new moon, which is on the 13th of November. So around the 13th of November, that's the best time this month to be sky viewing with your binoculars and telescopes. And after that, we'll see it getting bigger, growing brighter in the evening sky, ready for the next full moon, which is the 28th of November. So, again, for astronomers, we like it when there's a new moon, when it's dark. The moon, when it's full, doesn't really do much for us, does it?
No, it's an opportunity to go to bed early sometimes.
But, the planets are bright enough. We can, even when there's a full moon, we can see the planets. So what are we doing with the planets this month? Well, 2 of them not visible at all.
No. So the M's have gone.
The M's, yeah.
Mars and Mercury.
Yeah, Mercury is the innermost planet, as we all seem to remember. But we won't see that at all this month. It's much too close to the sun. And that same applies to Mars.
Yes.
So that will pass solar conjunction, we call it, on the 17th of November. What's that mean, solar conjunction?
It means, in the case of Mars, that the Earth, the Sun, and Mars are all in the same approximately straight line. So Mars is the other side of the Sun.
Which means, obviously, we can only see it in the daytime, which means we can't see it at all.
Indeed.
But the rest of the planets, all of them, we can see in the evening sky throughout November. So it's a great time to get that telescope out, the one you've got in the loft, the one that you bought for your son or daughter a few years ago.
Yeah.
Get it out and set it up, or come and join us. We'll come to that later. First object, anyway. How about brilliant Venus? Still in the morning sky, Steve?
It's gorgeous. It's so nice. And I know I say this every month, keep watching it as the sky brightens and you can see it in broad daylight.
Yeah.
As long as you're looking in the right place and it's a clear sky, no problem.
Yeah. And, of course, for those, and we've said this on previous months as well, if you're driving up the A31 very early in the morning on your way to a meeting in London maybe. There it will be right in front of you. Brilliant blue-white star-like object. The brightest thing in the sky other than the moon and the sun. So keep watching. It's going to be there all the rest of the year through Christmas. But it's getting further and further from the Earth every day, and eventually it will also go into solar conjunction next June. So you'll see it in the morning sky getting closer and closer to the sun all the way through the spring of next year.
Yeah.
So, what about the rest of the evenings in November, Steve?
Well, we've got Saturn, the ringed planet, which is glorious. If you've not seen it, you really must get hold of a telescope or borrow a telescope, come to one of our stargazing evenings, somehow get yourself to see Saturn, because it is one of nature's wonderful sights.
Yeah, and we've referred to our wow moments
Indeed.
as well, as Fordingbridge astronomers and Wessex astronomers. When we do have our evenings with the telescopes outside, we set them up for people to come and have a look. We never fail to get wow. When people look at the planet the planet Saturn, and Venus as well, but certainly Saturn, the first thing you hear is, wow. Is that looks like a painting, many people say. So, yeah, Saturn is the first up. So as the sky darkens in November, just head outside, look south, and there, in a patch of sky which is virtually empty, you will see one single bright yellowish star, and that's the planet Saturn.
Yep.
And it's really the perfect time, as you're saying, Steve, to set up your telescope, isn't it? Get it out and test it on Saturn. So there we go. If you look through your telescope, you may also see the brightest satellite of Saturn. That's quite easy to see, called Titan.
Yes, that it is. It's surprisingly bright for something that's so far away.
Yeah. So once you've found Saturn, so now imagine you're looking at Saturn, you're on your lawn, you're staring south, and there's Saturn above you. Put out your left arm, turn to your left, which is towards the east, and there, much brighter in the sky, is the giant of the solar system, the planet Jupiter.
Yeah.
And there she'll be, or there he will be. Funny how the planets are all female and male, aren't they? It's really weird, but Jupiter's definitely a male.
Oh, definitely. Zeus to the ancient Greeks.
Absolutely. What about Saturn? Is Saturn she or he?
Saturn's a he. He's Kronos. Old Father Time, in a sense. Yeah.
So
No, the only planet name that is a she
is that Venus?
is Venus.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
So
Mercury is the messenger of the gods.
Yeah.
Mars was a god of war.
Yeah. Uranus is a Titan. Neptune is the
God of the sea.
God of the sea, and
Yeah.
Pluto. Yeah, so actually
Anyway.
that's true. Anyway, moving on. Enough of this banter. So Jupiter, the brightest planet in the evening sky in November, and as I said, you'll find it rising in the east. And as the evening progresses, as the month progresses, also, you'll find Saturn further and further to the west, and Jupiter will be rising higher and higher into the south. All through the month. So you can't miss them. They're both, especially Jupiter, you cannot miss it. It's the brightest object in the sky
it's lovely.
from mid-month.
And if you've got binoculars, even, you can look at Jupiter and you might see a few little stars in a line either side of it. And that's actually its moons, the Galilean moons. And you can see those relatively easily, even in something like 10 times 50 binoculars.
Yep.
And that's great.
And you can watch them over the nights, right, Steve?
Yeah. And you look at them, an hour later, and they'll have moved.
Yeah, that is the most remarkable thing, that all this is happening, that these satellites are revolving around Jupiter, millions and millions of miles away, and we can step out into our backyard and watch this progression through the evening. It's great. Also, when you've got your telescope, if you point to Jupiter, not only will you see the satellites, but you can also see the bands and possibly also the Great Red Spot,
which is now the not quite so great salmon pink spot.
Yes,
it's shrinking. Yeah. It used to be about 3 times the size of planet Earth. It's now only about twice the size of planet Earth. Yeah. Only.
But you can still see it. It's not great. You can still see it. So Jupiter actually reaches opposition on the 3rd of November.
So what's opposition?
So opposition is the opposite of conjunction. Remember, Steve was just saying how conjunction is when we look at the sun and Venus or Mars, whatever, is behind the sun, therefore you can't see it in the daylight. Well, opposition is the opposite of that. That's when you look in the opposite direction from the sun, there's the planet. So obviously that means that the best time to see Jupiter is when it's opposite the sun in the sky, which means it will rise at sunset, right?
Yep.
And it will set at sunrise. So you can see Jupiter on the 3rd of November all night. And that is the best time. It's the closest that we'll get to Jupiter, and that's what astronomers look out for. When is a planet at opposition?
Because then it's brightest and it's biggest.
Absolutely, yes. And it's even in the binoculars, you can definitely see the planet's disk, no question.
Oh, yeah.
Quite obviously. Then, so what else we've got in the night sky? We've got those two ice giants we talked about last month, Uranus and Neptune. They're still with us all this month.
Well, we'll put them on the Forest FM fan page.
Yeah, we'll show you exactly where to find them. One's in the constellation of Pisces, and the other is in the constellation of Aries. So not too far from Jupiter, actually, to find Uranus. And, there's not much to really say about them. We said enough last month.
But
that's all we need to say. It's probably till next year. There is a comet in the night sky, but let's not boost this up too much. There is a comet in the night sky. There are probably several, actually, but there is one in the night sky right now. You'll need a fairly big telescope to see it. It's called Comet 103P Hartley. It was discovered in 1986, and it's a small, rocky, icy body. And the only reason we're mentioning it on this show, Steve, is because it was visited by NASA in 2010.
It was.
So we'll post a nice picture of it. We know what it looks like because the spacecraft flew by it. And you can just see it with good-sized telescope in the early hours of the morning. But don't get your hopes up too much.
No, but isn't that fantastic that it is now possible to take a spacecraft literally billions of miles, collect a sample, which is what the OSIRIS-REx mission has just done, and return that sample to Earth.
Yeah.
You know, it's a tiny, tiny target, but this is the power of science.
Yeah. And you know, both Steve and I are of an age, aren't we, Steve? We're of an age where this thing was science fiction when we were kids, wasn't it? Absolute science fiction. Even landing on the moon, I remember it. But to actually go to an asteroid, pick up a few pounds, kilos, and bring it back, incredible, really incredible. So, but I think we will be expecting another comet by the end of next year, won't we? A much brighter one to see.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Let's not big up a comet because they become disappointing very easily. Because, as David Levy says, and I've probably said this before, comets are like cats. They have tails and they do whatever they like.
Yes. You can never have a predictable bright comet. It doesn't exist. Anyway, what about our constellation of the month this month, then? What are we going to talk about this month?
It's one of my favourites. It's Perseus.
Perseus, yes.
Perseus, the Greek hero Perseus, who rescued Andromeda, which we talked about last month.
Yeah. So where do I find him?
Well, if you look up into the eastern sky, once it gets dark, you'll see the W of Cassiopeia on its side in the sky, the W shape, the 5 stars. And you come straight down from that, and you will see a bright group of stars, and that's called the Alpha Persei moving cluster. It's a cluster of stars. You can see it as a cluster of stars with your naked eye, but boy, put binoculars on that, and it really pops. It's glorious. It'll fill your field of view, and it's just lovely, hot, blue-white stars.
Right. Okay. This is not the Pleiades, though, is it? No. Which is further down.
No, that's not the Pleiades yet. Pleiades we'll do later.
Right. Okay. So at the top of the constellation of Perseus is the Alpha moving cluster, Alpha Persei moving cluster.
Yeah.
And right at the tip of Perseus is Pleiades, and we'll do that when it's more winterish.
There's a few other things in Perseus that are worth looking at, though. Enjoy that cluster. And then to the right of it, and we'll put this on the map on chart on Forest FM fan page, there's a star called Algol.
Algol, that sounds very Arabic.
It is. It means the ghoul, the demon star.
So why do they call it that then?
Because it's an eclipsing binary star.
A what?
It's not actually a star, it's 2 stars.
Uh-huh.
So you've got a little hot blue-white one,
Right.
and you've got a bigger but dimmer star, and they're rotating around each other every 20-odd hours or so.
That's a bit like me and you. I'm the dimmer star.
No, I wouldn't say that. You're the bigger one, but yeah. And when the fainter one, the bigger, fainter one, comes in front of the brighter, smaller one, it dims. So this was why it was called the demon star, 'cause it's like it winks out. So in legend, it was the evil eye of the Medusa.
Right. So the 2 stars are rotating around each other.
Well, around their common centre of mass, yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's true. It's like the moon and the Earth. The Earth and the sun. The Earth and the moon rotate about their common centre, but that is actually inside the Earth.
It's inside the Earth, yeah, the common centre of mass, because the moon is so small.
So small.
In comparison, yeah.
Okay. So what happens then is that the dimmer star, the bigger orangey star, is rotating around, or they're both rotating together, and it blocks out the brighter one.
Yeah.
How often does it do that then?
Well, it's just over 20 hours. So it's...
Two,
just over 2 days.
yeah, 2 days and 20 hours.
2 days and 20 hours.
And it causes the magnitude of Algol to drop. And you can really see that. If you're used to looking at the constellation of Perseus, you can look up in the sky and think, that doesn't look right.
Yeah.
And then you realise that Algol is at one of its minima. And, it's very predictable as well. Yeah. Absolutely predictable. It's to within millionths of a second that you can say this is the minimum point, and it gets brighter over the next 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah.
So we will post on the Forest FM website and on our Fordingbridge Astronomers website a list of the days in the month of November when you can see Algol at its minimum. I mean, obviously, sometimes it's minimum during our daytime and during the morning, so on, but there are times when you'll be able to look up in the month of November and see it very, very dim. And it's most surprising if you're used to seeing the constellation full.
And you can even watch it dim.
You can.
So this is, and these are stars that do this. Change in brightness called variable stars, and this is just one of the ways in which they can vary in brightness.
Yeah.
There are others, which I'm sure Mark will tell us about at another occasion.
Yeah, it's the study of variable stars is, and I'm not going to go on about it too much, but the study of variable stars is something that us amateurs can really add to the body of scientific knowledge, because some of them, like Algol, are very, very predictable, and you can say it's going to be at a minimum on this particular day, this particular time to the second. But there are thousands of other variable stars that just irregularly brighten and dim for reasons, in some cases, not known, in some cases, pretty much known. And by joining your Astronomical Society and adding to that body of scientific knowledge, we really are improving man's knowledge of the stars and heavens above.
Yeah.
Great stuff. So what else have we got in Perseus? Is there anything else up there?
Oh, yeah. If you look in the space between Perseus and Cassiopeia, which is above it, about halfway between them, you might notice a little fuzzy patch. Again, look at that with binoculars, and you'll see it's 2 little fuzzy patches.
Right, this is the so-called Perseus double cluster.
Yes, it's 2 little clusters of stars.
Right.
Much, much further away than the moving cluster. But they're really nice to look at. And if you look at the upper one of those, you'll see there's a little string of stars going off to the left from it. Follow that along.
With your binoculars.
With your binoculars. You're definitely going to need binoculars for this. Yep. So follow that little string of stars along, and it leads to... It'll be like he's lying on his side, but it's called the Muscle Man cluster. It's like a little stick figure. And what it is, it's like somebody standing with his legs apart and flexing his biceps, hence the Muscle Man cluster. It's remarkable. But you will need binoculars for it. But it's just fun to look at.
Is this one of your discoveries, Steve?
No. It was. I think this was discovered by a man called Pasmino. I think it's sometimes known as Pasmino's cluster. I may be wrong about that, though.
Right.
And then the other one up there to look at is this glorious straight line of stars. So the way to find this is you take the two end stars on the W of Cassiopeia, and you go exactly the same distance along to the down to the left. And look at your binoculars, and you'll see there's this little string of stars with a bright one in the middle. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely dead straight, and it's almost vertical at this time of year. Yep. So it's called Kemble's Cascade. You can imagine it as a ribbon waterfall of stars. It's beautiful. And just at the bottom of it, maybe you'll need slightly bigger binoculars to see this, is a tiny little cluster. It's called NGC 1502. And that's like the splash pool at the bottom of the waterfall. It's just beautiful.
It's such a poet, isn't it? Our Steve, Starry Steve's such a poet.
Well, if you cannot just enjoy looking at stuff, why do you bother doing it?
Yeah,
exactly we of course we do it for the science, and we get readings for the scientific discovery and all the rest of it, but also just the sheer enjoyment of the night sky.
Exactly.
Come on.
And we will post on our website, as we just said, directions for you to find both the Kemble's Cascade, as well as the Musselman Stock 2, as it's called, cluster, which is up there in Perseus. Super. So that's the constellation. It's very easy to find. As we said, have a look up in the eastern sky after the sunset, after it's got dark, and there you'll find it. And, of course, if you need help to find it, the best place to come is to your local astronomical society, of which we've got two in the FM area. We talk about this every month, but please come and join us. We are the Fordingbridge Astronomers. Right. We meet every third Wednesday in the month up at the Elm Tree in Ringwood. We are around 70 members now, so we're growing very quickly, maybe as a result of our podcast on here. I'm not sure, but we have a lot of members. We're very, very friendly, very sociable, and we'd love to welcome you along when it's night skies like we have in November, December. We take our telescopes out and we'll show you all round the sky. But it's usually once or twice a month, depends on our horrible British weather, Steve.
But the other thing we're going to be doing this month is we're going to have a beginner's evening as well.
Yes,
so people who are just getting into astronomy and want to know things like, what telescope can I get? Or how do I set my kit up that I've got and I've forgotten how to get it together? Anything like that, any of that sort of question. A couple of us are going to be doing that just to help people get started. So that is only for club members. So unless you're a club member, you're not going to be able to come to that one.
Join us.
But join the club.
Yeah.
Another thing that we do, there's the Wessex Astronomical Society, which meets on the first Tuesday of the month at the Allendale Centre. So the next one's going to be in December for that. And we're also now on Cranbourne Chase, we are now starting to do public stargazing evenings. And there's going to be one in Dinton on the 9th of November, which Mark and I will both be at.
Yes.
But for that, you need to book. The booking's on Eventbrite. It's free, but we need to book because we need to control numbers for these events. Yeah. And we'll have our kit there, and we will just spend a couple of hours showing you the beauty of what's out there.
And it's really important. There is no such thing as a silly question in astronomy.
True.
I know a lot of people come to our club and say, I'm really a very, very novice. I don't know very much. We go, great.
That's where we all started.
That's how we all learned. You know, what is that thing in the sky? And before you know, you become as addicted and as erudite as Steve.
No, some strangely meaning the word erudite we haven't previously encountered. But
anyway, so I think that wraps it for the month of November.
It does indeed.
We will see you again in a month's time for December. We'll have a special Christmas edition probably for the month. So this is Mark Hardaker.
And Steve Tonkin.
And wishing you all the best for November. Clear skies, and we'll see you again soon.